the numbers all go to 11.
I'm talking about bands that rock. Led Zeppelin. What about Sabbath? AC/DC? Motorhead.
Does that mean it's louder? Is it any louder?
Well, it's one louder, isn't it?
We're not worthy! We're not worthy!
Why don't you just make 10 louder and make 10 be the top number and make that a little louder?
These go to 11.
I get up off the ground and raise my head. Days like this, think I should be dead. One for Satan, two for me. Let's cheat the devil, it's fun, don't you agree?
Welcome to the Nothing Shocking podcast. I'm your co-host and managing editor of Zoiks Online, Bob Zarrell. With me in Deadbug Studios is
Coach Nez and
Jason Hartman of Vanishing Kids.
Fantastic.
Visit us at zpnetwork.com, zoiksonline.com. We're on Facebook at the Nothing Shocking podcast community fan page and the Quad Cities Rock and Roll Junkies interest group. Our Twitter handle is NoShockPod. Our sponsors are
Ragged Records, new and used, Davenport, Iowa, Rock Island, Illinois. We have Legends Guitar Picks in Milan, Illinois, and RockstarPicks.rocks out of Queens, New York.
We're also on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and all your other podcatchers. And Sunday mornings at noon Central Time, we're on Rock Rage Radio, internet radio, so check that out there. And as always, I want to thank the band Hong Kong Sleepover for letting us use their music and as our intro and bumpers and et cetera, et cetera. Our guest this week is, who are we doing?
We're doing Mark Osegueda from Death Angel.
Yeah, great interview.
Very great interview. But now we're having Jason Hartman of the Vanishing Kids. He's got some exciting news for us. Tell us about what you got going on, Jason.
Well, we have a new record coming out on Spartan Records out of Finland that we're pretty excited about. It's called Heavy Dreamer. It's been a few years in the works here now. We haven't put an album out since 2013, so we've been working on this with our new lineup, and it's finally done and mastered and set for release on November 30th.
Oh, very cool.
So it'll be available on vinyl and CD, limited colored vinyl and stuff like that too. So it's exciting stuff for us.
Oh, fantastic. You know, I've seen you guys live, I believe, 2 or 3 times down at Ribco in Rock Island, Illinois. And, you know, I guess maybe for the folks that have not heard the Vanishing Kids before, and I've tried to explain this to a couple of friends and music fans that we have. So when they check them out, like, you know, it's I kind of give you guys like a psychedelic groove, but I feel touches of The Cure involved with it, and maybe some King Crimson and other maybe prog rock bands of the early yesteryear. Am I on with that, or am I missing something?
Yeah, I think that we're definitely a mix of a few different things. We're trying, you know, this album is probably a little heavier than the ones in the past. You know, yeah, we try to mix things up. It's we definitely have the, you know, the metal side, the Black Sabbath 70s rock, Deep Purple side, but then we've always had like a kind of a post-punk side too, like Susie and the Banshees or The Cure even a little bit. So we try to mix those things up together and make our own original stew, I guess, with it. But yeah, we definitely have psychedelic influence and a little bit of progressive rock stuff too going on. So it's definitely a lot of different elements that go into it. But it is focused. I think there's a vision for it, and you know, it comes out somehow sounding cohesive with all the different stuff going on in there. So
when you say
I think you're close.
When you say there's a vision for it, was that vision something you had in mind before the band, before the album, or do you kind of go in there and just let it organically happen and that the vision kind of takes over from there?
Well, I think we have an idea of what we want to do when we write stuff. You know, we don't have like the album isn't like a, you know, it's not a whole, what do I want to say, like
concept album.
It's not like a concept album or anything like that. It's, you know, we have a way that we want to write songs. We want them to come out being like real songs, like pop songs that have a verse and a chorus, but we also like to have, you know, parts that may have like more of a progressive side or a jammy side. So we like to make actual, we've just grown up listening to a lot of different kinds of music, and we definitely can appreciate like some pop sensibility and stuff, as well as, from like a musician standpoint, something that's maybe more musical and not quite as stuck in a box, I guess. So yeah, I guess that's kind of a vague answer, but but yeah, I mean, I think in simpler terms, we're just trying to put together catchy original rock songs that throw together like a few different genres that we've kind of always used, with kind of the metal and the post-punk, mixing that together in different ways in every album, I think is kind of the vision, I guess. And then for this one in particular, it's called Heavy Dreamer. It's definitely, focused on being a more, a little bit more of a 70s rock influenced album, maybe a little bit heavier than we've been in the past. I think that's just kind of the direction we're going. We've got our drummer is in a few different heavier bands. Death Wish is one of them. And our bass player has definitely got a background that's, in a more metal background, I would say, I guess, too. So,
I guess maybe the next question is that I know that the origins of the band are you guys are in Madison, Wisconsin now, correct? Am I right on that one?
Yep.
Okay, but did I read something online correctly that that maybe the band was kind of started in Freeport, Illinois? Is that correct?
No, I'm from Freeport, Illinois. That's my hometown, and that's actually also Jerry, our bass player's hometown.
Okay.
But the band actually started. Well, my wife and I, Nikki and I, started the band in Madison, but we pretty much immediately moved west. We lived in Seattle and we lived in Portland, and those are where we actually played our first shows. Was in Portland, Oregon. We were out there for a number of years, and we've come back and forth a little bit. Since, the band started in the year 2000, so we've moved back and forth a couple times. We've been back in Madison now for 8 years. So,
gotcha. I guess
it's been around a little bit.
The next kind of question I want to ask you here is, when I've seen the band perform, you guys were opening up for, I believe, Horizont one night, and then the last time I saw you guys were opening up for the Skull. Two different bands, obviously sonically. And you guys obviously are totally different than either of those two bands. When it comes to getting gigs where you're opening up for some of these bigger bands, is it something that you try to maybe get a feel for it to be a little bit different, or do you guys just kind of take what you can get, or how does this work out for you?
Well, I think we're trying to move in a little bit of heavier direction, so we're trying to go for kind of those more of the heavier bands to open up for these days. We just kind of pick shows that we want to be at, and that we think that we could kind of fit. I think we do our own thing, so we can fit different places, sort of, but we never completely fit anywhere. So it's kind of hard, but we kind of pick shows that we want to be a part of, that we think that maybe their audience could understand part of what we're trying to offer. Mainly it's just stuff that we like and that we would like to, be a part of. I guess that's it in a nutshell.
Are there any upcoming shows you want to plug or promote?
Well, yeah, we are going to be part of the Wake Brewing 1 year anniversary show, which is coming up. I think it's November 10th in Rock Island at Wake Brewing. They're going to have a tent there with 4 bands. Resin from Chicago is going to be there too. So that's going to be a really fun one, I think.
Very cool. I know that you guys kind of have a connection with Jason Paris and his work with Ribco and now at Wake Brewing. I think he's still doing stuff at Ribco too. Do you guys, since you've played here infrequently in the Quad Cities and in Rock Island mostly, do you feel a connection with the community here as far as the people that come out to the shows? I guess we feel like the rock scene is somewhat kind of struggling to a certain extent here. Do you guys foresee that as a problem as a performer here, or what are your thoughts?
Well, Jason's been really cool to us. I mean, he's given us a lot of good shows. Those two that you mentioned earlier were two really great shows that he got for us. And it seems like you guys have a lot of really cool, people doing really good stuff there. With All Senses Festival, and we played that one year, and that was really fun. It seems like you have a really good music community. I mean, I'm glad to be able to come down and be part of it. So we're having a good time.
Well, fantastic. Well, we're kind of out of our allotted introduction time, but when the album is out, get a hold of me, and we would love to plug whatever thing or promote anything we possibly can for you guys. I will be down at Wake Brewing on November 10th to check you guys out once again, and I'll buy you a beer. How about that? For coming on.
Awesome.
Well,
cool. Yeah, it's going to be a good time. We're looking forward to that. So
absolutely.
Thanks again for having us on the show. We really appreciate it. So
absolutely. And tell Nikki that we said hi and that I'll be getting to see you guys on November 10th. How about that?
Great.
All right, man. Take care easy and have a good one.
Okay. Thanks again.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye.
And that was Jason Hartman of the Vanishing Kids.
Yeah, November 30th comes out?
Yes, it is. Yep.
And then the Wake Brewing, November 10th. Our guest again this week is
Mark Osegueda of Death Angel.
Yeah, so enjoy that interview.
Absolutely.
We'll see you next week.
Good night.
Hello.
Hey, Mark. This is Eric Nesbitt from the Nothing Shocking podcast.
How you doing, Eric?
Hey, doing well. Hey, I want to introduce you to my co-host, Bob Zirl, and our special co-host, Ted Renner of the Hong Kong Sleepover.
Hello, how are you?
All right. I'm doing great. How you guys?
Good,
nice,
good.
Nice to virtually meet you, I guess.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Hey, well, thank you for agreeing to do this. Robin's been amazing to correspond with to get this all set up for us. So pass along our thank yous to her as well.
Oh, right on. I absolutely will. Sorry, I had this down where I'm actually at Rob's studio. We're tracking vocals for, we're doing demos for the new record right now. I've been tracking vocals, and I had my alarm set for 4:15. So, boom.
All right, fantastic. Well, sounds good. So I guess that kind of eliminates the first question I was going to ask you. On the professional side of things, what have you been up to besides recording the tracks for the new album? What else has been going on with you in the band?
Well, I mean, right now that's the main thing. It's just we've been writing the new record, and this is the first time I'm laying down vocals for the first time, demoing stuff with Rob just at his home studio. So this is our first time tracking vocals for the new stuff, and that's all I've been doing is writing lyrics for this goddamn record.
So do you guys? How do you guys do that? Do you when you say you demo stuff? Do you lay it all out and then everybody kind of takes it home and you listen to it and you tweak it a little bit from there, or is it just kind of one of those things where you it's just for your own personal whatever? Or are you giving it to other people to listen to, or what do you do when you talk about laying things down to demo them?
Yeah, I mean, we don't give it to other people. It's so much just for us, and namely, me and Rob, to tell you the truth. I mean, we do the instrumental demo stuff the guys get, but vocals come on very last, and Rob has been tracking everyone. He already tracked drums, all the guitars, and bass. And so I come in last and, show them what I've written.
Do you guys...
And the guys get their instrumental version so they can practice their parts and remember their parts that they came up with. And, me and Rob like to sit on the vocals for a while and go back and forth about what we could, tweak a little here, tweak a little there. And also, once the vocals get added in, we see how we could edit certain songs or, just make adjustments. Like maybe this part should go 4 more times, 2 more times, or maybe this part shouldn't go the 6 times it does,
Yep, I do very similar. Do you guys ever have like the instrumental guys come back in, or the drums, the guitar player comes in and say, "Oh, I want to make a slight change to my part in order to complement the vocals or work with things like that," or is it pretty much just by the time you come in with the vocals, it's all done and that's it? You don't do anything else.
It's pretty much pretty much for the vocals, they come in last. And, if any, the major changes would be mostly with Rob's leads, if anything. Like he'll throw in, he'll do licks off of, some of my lyrics, just kind of like a sinister lick or something that'll fit in between, things like that. So, but once the bass and stuff is laid down, that's been laid down completely. Yeah.
Cool. How has your process, writing songs and lyrics changed over the years from, back from your original run to this new run you've been on? Is it kind of the same process, or has it evolved over the years?
Oh, it's absolutely evolved. It's a completely different process because especially back in the 80s, there was, with the original 5 members, everyone contributed, and it got to the point where, say by Act 3, which is our last record from the 8, I guess technically it came out in 90 maybe, or 89. I think 89 actually. And that was the last record with the original lineup. And by that point, we'd written, I believe, like 30 songs and picked out, maybe what made the record, basically. But everyone was contributing. Everyone was writing their own songs, and everyone, we had to do process of elimination. And now it's completely different. Now, Dead Angels has gone through some lineup changes for sure. And now we kind of pretty much keep it that Rob writes pretty much all the music, and I write, 95% of all the lyrics now. And it seems to be a good formula for us since we've reformed, and it's or at least with this lineup from Relentless Retribution on, because it's much more consistent, and I think the records flow a bit more than some of the other ones. It was just kind of a bit sporadic because everyone had, their say, and people wanted their songs on the record. And it's a lot less competition now, so it's kind of nice.
Are you and Rob able to, critique each other, or do you have to tread carefully around one another with the stuff you're creating?
Oh, me and Rob, since we've worked together for so many years, me and Rob can be dead ass honest with each other about pretty much anything. And it's not like, our critiques are actually, we can tell we're both searching for something better. It's never, oh, that sucks, dude. It's never anything like that, which, that kind of vibe probably did happen way back in the day with the original band.
It's so great how you mature over the years.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. And me and Rob really, really, have a very comfortable, working relationship for sure.
Yeah, when we talk about maturity, as far as as a band, as far as you are in this part of your career, how has the writing of the concept of the album changed for you, as far as when you're approaching writing a song, the lyrics? How has it changed from back when you first started the band till now?
Well, when we first started the band, it was like, I joined in '84. So I was 15 when I joined. And, back then you're just trying to write anything that sounds metal, sounds, violent, and sounds, I guess, dark and evil, and nothing taken away from that now. But as we've grown older and gone through a lot of different life experiences, you could achieve that same type of vibe or the same type of feel, but based on what has happened to you in your life and what happens in real life. What happens in real life is just as scary and evil and dark as anything, fiction or fantasy. So now, we just take events that have happened to us personally or events that are happening in the world and just, give it a good, just shot of metal,
When you go into an album, do you know what you want going in? And does that idea, by the time you're done writing the lyrics and the songs, you kind of let it evolve naturally, or do you kind of just have that idea going in, and how often does the idea stick?
It's with me, each song definitely has its own life. It's not usually like a whole concept record. And I usually feed off of Rob's riffs usually paint a picture for me. And you know, we go through we've been through a lot of shit as far as people, you know, ripping us off and just, you know, people in our corner, so to speak, you know, working for us, dropping the ball left and right, and, you know, us having to fire them and move on. It's just, there's constantly some sort of battle with us going on. And it's still to this day. And, you know, so I just use that for fuel. So a lot of the lyrics are blatantly directed at certain individuals that have screwed us over and certain things that we're, you know, and certain things that we've gone through. And I mean, and it's to this day. So it's a never ending process. And the funny thing is, you know, every now and then I'll get asked, like, you guys have been together so long, you know, and of course I'm not naming any names, and these are questions put towards me. You know, there's some other metal bands or thrash bands that have been around as long as you, pardon me, but it seems like their vibe or their lyrics have gotten a lot lighter than they used to be. How do you guys maintain, you know, this anger still? And I was like, well, you know, simple. We haven't reached that level of success, and we're still getting fucked over constantly. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And we truly are. We truly are. So our music's just a reflection of all the crap that we still go through on an almost daily basis.
That's great. It's sad and great at the same time.
Truly.
And, you know, in 2018, what keeps you going? Because it seems like the industry in general is screwing everybody over on top of everything you're saying. You know, what keeps it alive? What keeps you moving? Is it the live show? Is it just you have to do it? What's driving you?
It's so ingrained in me, and it's just something. It is like, you know, there's no high like it performing live, you know. And then, you know, as I've grown, though, the high of also creating, or just sometimes in the, you know, amidst creating, or while I'm writing a song, I want to, you know, yank all my hair out and, you know, smash the walls because it gets so frustrating sometimes. But that sense of accomplishment when you finish a song, when it's done, and you're like, you know, that's another high altogether, which I've learned to love. So I've learned to love the creative aspect. I've learned to love the studio over the years. You know, in the 80s, I hated the studio. I hated the studio.
Really?
Completely. I hated recording. Yeah, it was like the opposite for me. Some people, I've never had stage fright, but in the 80s, I got like this really tense when I get in the studio. It was almost like a studio fright. Yeah.
Well,
and now I love recording and I love playing live.
You know, that leads me to the next question is that, you know, Death Angel was a part of the forefront of thrash metal and the heights of its popularity back in the late 80s. Do you ever, you know, feel, you know, with, you know, journalists and writers and critics, etc., you know, they mention the big four, but they always exclude some of these very important thrash metal bands like Death Angel, like Flotsam and Jetsam, like Sacred Right, etc., etc. Do you ever feel like, hey, what about us? Why aren't we involved with that? I mean, I know sales has a lot to do with it from back in the day, but, you know, there was a lot of important bands from that thrash era that don't get their due. Do you feel like you've been slighted in those terms?
I don't necessarily know if we were slighted. You know, because the big four is the big four for an absolute reason, plain and simple. But, you know, now I think at least there is a metal scene again. You know, there was a while where there was no metal scene, and, you know, and we were broken up anyway, but it's now that there is a metal scene and younger kids are getting into it. And, like, I don't feel slighted. I don't. I just... you know, the big four will always be the big four, but I do think that we definitely still have to fight extra hard for respect. We've earned a lot of respect from journalists and fans that at one point kind of overlooked us. And I think because of our persistence and, you know, and I guess the aggressiveness of our material that has grown a great deal, that I think we won a lot of people over that used to, you know, kind of scoff at us.
You know, you talk about the scene coming back, and it's kind of at this point in your career, you have the name. You know, they're obviously bigger names, but you still have that hardcore fan base that still kind of exists, and all these bands do along with the scene. Is it what's it like out there? You know, in terms of when you go on tour and play, is one side of the country better than the other? Is Europe better than over here? What are you kind of noticing out there?
Europe's definitely the stronger market, and it was in the '80s, and it is now. Europe, when metal died in the States, in the '90s and whatnot, it was still flourishing in Europe, and it is the stronger scene, and we have a larger fan base there. But that being said, the States has come a long way, and the metal scene in the States has grown exponentially, and it's pretty great, And granted, when we're touring the States, you'll definitely, when you play the major cities, you're going to get a lot larger crowd, But then you hit these smaller cities to get to the major cities, and you're playing smaller venues, but the passion in these people, they're excited that you're playing in this town that you're in. So the passion's there. The fans are just kind of spread out. And the States is so, it is so spread out. And while Europe is very large, but it seems just much more communal when it comes to the metal scene. And I think because the summer festivals bring that out in people. And the summer festivals in Europe are just, you can't compete with that. And something like that could never happen in the States, consistently. It can't. It's just too difficult for people to go to these festivals yearly and fly from all over the States, where Europe is just kind of set up for that. And people, get holidays in the summer and get to take off like a month in the summer, where, you just can't do that in the States. And I think it kind of, helps make the European scene what it is, but I love touring anywhere. And the States, again, has become a lot stronger than it used to be, for sure.
How do you, so this is kind of an odd one. In the 80s, there was that tape trade culture, where everybody was encouraging people to record the music and pass it around, so it was kind of helping to distribute everything. How do you think that, with today, everything has changed to where it's all digital and there's nothing to actually give and trade and things like that? How's that really impacted the scene? And so I play in a smaller band. I noticed that kind of a thing helping to get us out there. Is that the kind of thing that hurts a bigger band? Where it's people are getting your music around, but maybe you're not seeing anything from that or royalties or anything like that. Does that make any sense?
Well, it's odd. You just kind of shape shift your business model to a certain degree, because the internet in general is the greatest thing that ever happened to music, but it's also the worst thing. So you just got to, kind of do a huge stutter step and, adapt to it, because it is the greatest marketing tool for any band.
Oh yeah, it's been great for me.
Yeah, so you can't take that away from it. And so where once you made music, money off of record sales, that's not necessarily the case any longer. Mm-hmm. But now even everyone's adjusting. Now, publishing companies are now, they're getting some of your money now, and they're readjusting that so you get money from people streaming your music. It's got to be a great deal, but they are still working on actual breakdowns and to make it better for the musicians finally. That being said, when it was at its worst, it just became, you just got to tour more, and your merch carried you through. And to this day, that's what saves us, merch, when we're touring. And right. That's become the business model now, and I was getting at something about that. Of course I got sidetracked, but yeah, that's what it is. You make your money off of your merch right now. But right. The great thing is about metal, I know streaming and whatnot has destroyed a lot, some musicians' livings that they were accustomed to. But the great thing about metal is it's one of those still one of those lasting scenes where people do, for the most part, want the physical product. Metal fans still buy shirts. They buy the album. They'll buy, they still want the tactile experience of it. And that's what's so cool about the metal scene, what I mean? And where a lot of other type of, a lot of other scenes don't have that. So we're blessed in that right.
You know, you mentioned touring and the festivals, and you know they're kind of coming here with like Rock on the Range and Rocklahoma and these open air festivals popping up. But is that because of how spread out America is? Does that make it hard to tour in between these? Because it seems like there's a new one popping up every year, and almost to the point where it makes it hard to tour in between the. You know, everybody's saving their money to go to the Chicago one or the Ohio one or the whatever's closest to them. Is that making touring harder in the U.S.?
I wouldn't necessarily say that because, you know, if anything, you just kind of plan your tour around. If you're actually booked on one of those festivals, you get to plan your routing around that and, you know, work your way there, hitting shows en route and then hitting shows on the way back. If you're lucky enough to be part of a touring package that gets booked on one of those, that's brilliant. That's brilliant because, you know, the whole package comes with it. So there are a lot more than there used to be, that's for sure. And it just doesn't have public transportation and just isn't the same here as it is in Europe. People get along on, you know, just trains and whatnot. But, you know, with touring, we just, if we get booked on one of those festivals and we're not part of a package doing it, you know, we'll just hit our booking agent and say, you know, let's book dates around this to and from.
I guess, you know, this will take things a different direction as far as business model of touring goes. You know, in this part of your career, and I ask this, I think, to every guest we ever have, as far as, you know, your preference as far as, you know, the length of time and the amount of touring that you do. There's all these different types of philosophies of touring now. They're obviously traditional, get in the bus and go. The weekend warrior stuff, the festival stuff only. You know, where in this part of your career, you know, where does your preference lie now as far as how much you're gone and how do you kind of take it on, I guess?
I'm kind of a freak of nature. I'm like skilled. I love being on the road, and I can't wait for this record to come out so we can get back out on the road. I could tour relentlessly, truly. You know, every now and of course I like a break here and there for my voice.
Right.
But I as long as, you know, I go out for 5 weeks, have 2 weeks off, get back right out there. I can tour, you know, I can just tour and tour and tour. I know other people, but then again, you know, other people even in this band and, you know, a lot of bands don't like the maybe touring as much or being away as much as I do. And that just makes sense, you know, but physically I'm capable of it. My voice, you know, definitely needs rest here and there. And, but I love being on the road for long, long periods of time. But I also have no problem, you know, flying in and doing one-offs or, you know, doing one-offs here and there. As long as I'm staying busy, it kind of helps keep me out of trouble, you know?
Right.
How many nights in a row can your voice handle?
That's a good question, you know, because I guess our record is 28 shows in 28 days. You know, they throw these tours at you every now and then. You know, we have one coming up that we're doing in Europe, the Headbangers Ball tour with Exodus, Sodom, Us, and Suicidal and Angels. Like that one, that's 17 shows, you know, 17 shows in 17 days. Every now and then you get these, you know, and, you know, we've never reached the luxury of being that band that can say, we want 4 shows on, 1 day off, 3 shows, you know, shit like that. We just can't pull that off, you know. We don't have that kind of luxury. Some bands have reached that level where they can. So all I do is just try to, you know, milk my days off for what they're worth. And I don't talk much on tour. I don't do press anymore when I'm on tour or anything. I just kind of save it for the stage. Post-show, I'll talk. Pre-show, I don't really talk much. I
guess I would like to take this kind of a different direction. Talk talk about labels. Death Angel's been with various labels. On as far as when you opposed to when you guys were with Geffen Records, and to now that you're with Nuclear Blast Records, I guess opposed to when you worked with Geffen, creative freedom goes as far as with Nuclear Blast opposed to something like a huge label like Geffen. Can you kind of compare and contrast working with the two labels?
Well, Geffen was definitely interesting because that was. It was a blatant major label when major labels were something, and we were their first thrash band they signed. They really had, they never had a thrash band, and they didn't really technically know how to market us, but we did turn in 30 songs. We worked out with our A&R guy too. We narrowed it down to which songs we liked best. And we had the luxury of, recording for 2.5 months on a record, and the luxury, it gave us the I guess, opportunity to record with Max Norman at the time, who, was to us the pinnacle. He recorded, Blizzard of Oz and produced Blizzard of Oz and Diary of a Madman. So for that, it afforded us some amazing memories and, of course, an album that we're very proud of. And, but, they didn't know how to market us. That's for damn sure. And they had to hire outside publicists and outside marketing firms to do us. And so now it's neat with Nuclear Blast. They probably get us more than any label ever has. And it makes sense because, everyone at that label is a metal fan, from the front desk to Marcus, the owner. So they get it. And, they give us complete artistic freedom. They don't hear our record till we deliver the mixed and mastered version. Then they hear it. We don't send them little tidbits to let them know how it's going. They've always been nothing but very gracious to us and very trusting of our vision.
That's pretty cool. That's awesome.
It's awesome. It's absolutely awesome. I wish more people in the industry would be like them. Not necessarily even just labels, but I mean, people, promoters, bookers, just still have that kind of, mentality to make the scene better, where unfortunately there's still a lot of people that have those positions that are more in it for themselves.
Yeah, it makes you kind of wonder, like you said, they don't hear your album until you've mixed it, you've mastered it, and you've handed it over. You wonder how many great albums or potentially great albums in history have been ruined because people who weren't in the band, stepped in, stuck their fingers in it, and said, "No, you can't say that, or you shouldn't change this, or you should do that, or whatever," and it totally screwed up, or threw off the artist's vision of what the album could have been, or what the song could have been, or what the entire thing. Yeah, I love that whole theory of we're just going to sit back and let you bring the finished product to us so we can release your vision and make everybody happy. I love that.
No, it's wonderful, and I'm sure I'm sure there's some albums out there that could have been incredible. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah, because
with being in a band that's had success, and you're lumped into, I guess that you'd be part of the Big Eight, I suppose, if they did that. Have you ever felt handcuffed by the thrash label and the success of other bands? Have you ever felt like you can't expand what you want to do, or I guess where are you with that?
I think we probably felt more of that when we were hitting Act 3 in like 89, 90. That's probably when we felt most trapped by the thrash, label. Now, I mean, I'm so proud that we're a thrash band, and we're writing some of the most aggressive stuff we ever have. But at the same time, people have always known that we're pretty diverse when it comes to our music, and we'll definitely push the envelope, but it's come to be accepted with us. But we're very, very proud of the thrash moniker and the umbrella that we're under, and I have no problem staying there, because we push that envelope. We do. And if we, we're all musicians. We've all grown up. If we want to, if there's another side of us we want to express that doesn't fit this band, do it with another band. We all have different projects that we can do, and it has been done, as a matter of fact.
And isn't that kind of the cool thing? If you look at pretty much every band anymore, every band has a side project. Every member of every band seems to have a side project. And 2018, this era affords you to do that and pretty inexpensively with no real pressure. Is this kind of, in some ways, as a creative person, is this kind of the best era to be in, strictly creatively speaking?
That's a good. I can only speak from the eras that I've been involved with. And right now, yes, this is my favorite. This is my favorite creatively, hands down. Then again, I wasn't fortunate enough to be around in, say, 65 through 70, 76 playing, heavier music.
Right.
So, but I can tell you, I fucking love those records, and I love that era. So,
yeah.
Well, speaking of the two,
yeah. So,
of the two eras, the cool thing about back then, there was so much mystery and mystique behind things. You didn't know, you had to wait till your magazine came every month or what, there was so much unknown with every band. Jimmy Page worshiped the devil, blah, blah, blah. Today, the social media, there's so much access, which is really cool too. Where do you fall? Would you prefer the mystery, or do you kind of like the access that's out there?
I myself, as an individual, love and miss the innocence and the excitement and the mystery. That's the one thing that I think the internet just fucking destroyed.
I would agree.
And not just about music, not about just music, about everything. And it's unfortunate. You need that. I mean, I remember sending away for demos back then, and you just check the mailbox every day, and finally you're just like, well, screw it, I guess they're not sending it, and then one day it shows up, and you're like, yes, and it's shit like that, or, and it's true. Or you go to the record store and you buy something because there's a cool album cover, things like that, and that's just completely gone. And people now, they're just so into immediate gratification. They're used to clicking on a button. If it doesn't grab them within a minute and a half, they already made up their mind they're not into that band. You know what I mean? And it's very unfortunate. Yeah, so, I mean, that's the one thing that I completely miss, and if there was a way that I could bring it back, I would, but I'd also probably be in a much, cozier living situation if that was the case.
But, I mean, think about the bands that couldn't exist today.
Yeah.
I mean, Kiss, they got several tries before Kiss Alive came out. Aerosmith got 3 records before they finally hit. All these great arena bands, stadium bands, wouldn't get that chance today because, unless they sat and worked for free for 15 years. That's kind of seems like what you need to do.
It's crazy, yeah. And I mean, these are some of my favorite bands of all time. It's just that part of the business. I wish I could, push rewind and bring all that back.
I want to
caring.
I want to. Go ahead.
No, please.
Oh yeah, I want to ask you one more question because I know we've taken up a lot of your time tonight. But okay, so in 1989, that's when I discovered Death Angel. I discovered Act 3. Today, when I listen to it today, it kind of still hits home with me. It kind of stands the test of time. I guess when I kind of listen to that album, it kind of takes me like, okay, this has got to be Death Angels, like Sgt. Pepper's to that degree. That's how I feel about it. With that being said,
I love that.
yeah. With that being said, do you have those sentiments of that album? And if so, what was the creative process like creating that album? Because it's still, like I said, it's still strong to this day.
Well, thank you. I love that you feel that way about it, especially because Sgt. Pepper is one of my favorite albums of all time. So, But I'm glad you feel that way. You know, I look back at all of it with an extreme fondness. I know that, you know, just from touring so much and talking to people, how much that album affected people and really, you know, brings them back to a certain time. And a matter of fact, the crazy thing is it hasn't been available on vinyl for 28 years. And this label, Music on Vinyl, out of Holland, got licensing for it and just released 1,000 of them on red vinyl.
Oh,
and
cool.
I actually bought one. I have every version of it, but I'm like, there's no way they're going to release an actual licensed, you know, red vinyl copy, and I'm not going to get it. So I bought one. But
good for you.
Yeah, the creative process back then, it was wonderful. It was, you know, there was a lot of tension. I'm not going to lie, because we wrote so many songs, and it got pretty darn competitive by the end. But I think, you know, what came out of it was great. I look back definitely at it with a fondness, for sure. And, you know, the 80s, yeah, I do now. At one point, there was a lot of, when I wasn't playing music, I kind of looked back at it with a bitterness, but then enough time went by that I was in a position that if I was ever lucky enough to play music again, you know, I'd give it my all. And so I learned to appreciate the 80s again, and now I appreciate every moment we had. There's some, you know, maybe some bits off Frogs in the Park I'd change for sure, but other than that, you know.
Well,
it all got me to where I am today.
Absolutely. But yeah, I guess as we kind of wind this down, you know, for future reference, you know, we know that you guys are, you know, demoing stuff. Where and what can we expect the rest of this year going into next year? Where are we at with the new album? You know, plans for a big tour on it. What can you tell us before we let you go for the evening?
Well, the next thing we have coming up is, well, as I said, we're demoing the record now, just at our Rob's home studio and our rehearsal studio, and we have a one-off show in in Illinois, the FTA Festival, and that's the weekend of September 7th. So I believe we're playing there on September 8th, and then shortly after that, we start tracking the actual record. And that'll take us through, end of November, where we start that European tour with Exodus, Sodom, Us, and Suicidal Angels. And I believe the record will come out in late May, early June, the latest. And then from there, we're just going to probably just attack the summer festivals in Europe just to market the hell out of it. And then we'll come back, and with this record, we want to tour as much as possible and, you know, really, you know, push it in people's faces. And, you know, we only have so many lives, and we're going to keep, you know, pounding away till we earn the respect of everyone.
Well, fantastic. Well, we want to thank you for participating on the Nothing Shocking podcast. This is how it's going to work out. We kind of have a backlog of material that we have to release. So we're looking about 4 to 5 weeks before your episode is going to be released. And when we release it, I will send it to Robin, and I can send you the link as well. And then just share it on social media as much as you possibly can. And then when the new album comes out, and if you want to come back on the podcast to promote and plug it, we'll help you out. Please get a hold of me or us.
That'd be awesome. That would be awesome. Yeah, thank you so much.
Hey, we appreciate your time. Good luck finishing up the album, and hopefully we'll talk to you sometime next year. How's that sound?
Absolutely. Hey, thanks for taking the time out, guys, for sure.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you, definitely. This was awesome.
Right on, man. Thanks.
Take care. Good night.
Bye.
All right, guys. Bye.